It always bothered me that Sansa Stark was the only Stark child without superpowers, but clues elsewhere in the greater narrative hint at something huge for her ending. I may be overthinking it, but will she become the Bride of R'hllor and help complete Melisandre's mission? George R.R. Martin loves drawing narrative parallels so he can describe two things at once. It allows him to explain how mysterious things truly happened, like the doom of Valyria, while we're watching something mostly unrelated, like Rhaenyra punking out Daemon. Consider it this way. The Targaryens were a disrespected offshoot family of Valyrian dragon riders, who fled overseas to Westeros and eventually commanded their own fortunes and destinies. And even as they were watered down, they were still the last vestiges of Valyrian blood. And in comparison, the Blackfyres were a disrespected offshoot clan of Targaryen royalty, who fled back overseas to Essos and eventually commanded their own fortunes and destinies. And even as they were watered down, they were still the last vestiges of Targaryen blood. And more broadly, the Valyrian sheepherders were a disrespected offshoot culture of ancient Essos, who fled over the Dothraki Sea and eventually commanded their own fortunes and destinies. And even as they were watered down, they were still the last vestiges of sheepherder blood. The history and collapse of the Targaryens is the detailed version of the story. The history and collapse of the Blackfyres is the miniature version of that same story. And the history and collapse of Old Valyria is the grand version of that exact same story. So, in this way, the Targaryen move to Dragonstone can be aligned with the Valyrian move to dragon taming. Aegon's conquest of Westeros gives us the broad strokes of Valyrian expansion across Essos. Over its 5,000-year reign, it no doubt endured a grander version of the Dance of Dragons, and Valyria further eroded its own internal functionality over several grander Blackfyre rebellions, before the 14 Flames destroyed the Empire in a grander version of Robert's Rebellion. There is overlap with Valyria's end and a Targaryen beginning, just like there's overlap with Targaryen end and a Blackfyre beginning. In this respect, we can piece together the entirety of Valyrian history by inflating the Targaryen family drama into continent-wide politics, and tease out broader themes and plots by examining the mini version of the Blackfyres. That same parallel storytelling is used for characters, where the ending of one character and the beginning of another directly explain the beginning or ending of their counterpart. Ned and Jon is the most obvious example, so I'll demonstrate it between them. We witness Ned's ending, so there's no mystery there, but we're only told about how he traveled to the warm south for his father and brother, and how he was a top general in Robert's army, and how there was a rumored relationship with Shiera Seastar. But we do witness Jon Snow traveling to the cold north for his uncle, and serving as a top general in the Night's Watch army, and having a rumored relationship with Ygritte, which unfortunately means that Jon's unknowable ending may not be so mysterious after all. Or more accurately, we're going to witness Jon Snow make a critical decision, which Ned never would have made, saving Jon from the worst part of Ned's ending, meaning it's likely he'd survive but would end up suffering exile, like it was planned for Ned. Other prominent characters have parallels to older or doomed counterparts as well. Bran is the story of how Bloodraven magically came to be, and Bloodraven is his fate if he doesn't change it. Arya is the story of how the Cursed Hound came to be, and the Hound is her fate if she doesn't change herself. But I wanted to focus on the Red Wolf herself, Sansa Stark, because her story is how Melisandre came to be, and Melisandre is her ultimate fate. Sansa begins as a princess, but she has no agency over her own life or direction. Melisandre began as Melanie the slave, with no agency over her own life or direction. Sansa is moved to the first of 2 private locations for special study, but it's the Red Keep to learn Westerosi politics from Cersei. Melisandre is sold to the first of 2 private locations for special study, but it's the Red Temple to learn R'hllor fire magic. Sansa is moved to the second private location, but it's the Vale to learn political manipulation from Littlefinger. Melisandre is given to the second private location, but it's to Asshai to learn shadow binding. Sansa adopts the foreign moniker of Elaine Stone while in the second location. Melisandre adopts the foreign moniker of Melisandre of Asshai while in the second location. They're both associated with the color red, and they're both associated with extremes in temperature. We do not know what Melisandre went through, but we can tease out broad strokes of her experiences by examining every step of Sansa's journey from her obedient beginning. A central theme in Sansa's arc is her strategic marriage into another powerful family, which complements Melisandre's desire to marry herself with fire, making herself infinitely more powerful. And she's doing just that. She is actually becoming fire incarnate, but her final form will be non-corporeal, meaning that she'll require a vessel if she needs to perform one more earthly task. Thanks to Beric Dondarrion in the show, we know that even non-believers can be vessels of R'hllor magic. And thanks to the books, Dondarrion shows us that anyone can perform R'hllor magic without practice. Meaning, there is nothing except distance that prevents Sansa from acting as Melisandre's vessel. But that is easily solved, because they'll both be in Winterfell when the new long night is eventually ended. Sansa will receive her superpowered ending, and it will be over faster than you can say, but Lady is a good girl. Now, if Sansa wants to avoid Melisandre's grim ending, who lost her humanity to the experiences forced upon her, then she'll need to make some critical decision that the Red Witch never would have made, saving herself from the worst part of Melisandre's ending, thematically speaking, of course, and feeling the fear and misery and despair of Melisandre while she's inhabiting her body might do the trick for balancing Sansa into the ideal version of herself just in time for spring. For the briefest of time, Sansa Stark will be the Bride of R'hllor, henceforth known as the Winter Phoenix. Of course, I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. Maybe Jon Snow will marry Sansa off to the Night King in revenge for being a horrible sister. And maybe Melisandre being a fire magic user means that no one needs to be her vessel after she transforms. But I kinda like my theory better, so I'm rolling with it. Until next time, keep reading between them lines. If you enjoyed this theory, you should totally check out my House of the Dragon video, where I argue that King Viserys could have stopped Robert's rebellion 200 years before it happened, and with only the nod of his head. Check it out. And please, take care of yourselves out there, and I'll talk at you next time.